Hi folks, so welcome to Steer. Today we have a very special guest. We have the Yalumba Ambassador and former Chief Winemaker, Louisa. Hi Louisa,
Hi,
welcome to Steer.
Thank you so much, pleasure to be here.
I heard that you're actually from Melbourne as well.
Yes, I grew up here.
Oh, fantastic.
I love coming back and just watching the new buildings go up and things that are changing.
It's out of control, isn't it?
Great.
So tell me, so we've got at the moment a range of Yalumba wines at Steer. We've got the Flight, we've got a couple of premium wines, so in addition to our extensive list, and I absolutely am in love with them, particularly the Kaylee. They're all the three wines that we're featuring are all Cabernet Shiraz, which is, you know, a signature of Yalumba. But the outstanding one for me was definitely the Kaylee. So please tell me, the Kaylee is such a revolutionary wine. What's the inspiration behind it?
Well, the inspiration behind it is to make something that is just truly delicious in a really modern way for something that's a really historic story for Australia and for Yalumba. That blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz is really one of those beautiful matches made in heaven, where you get the structure and the beauty of the Cabernet and the seriousness of the Cabernet, and then a little bit more fun from the Shiraz that sort of gives it a bit of a hug, and they're just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wines.
Yeah.
But the Kaylee is really special, and 2018, our sixth release.
Yes.
It's really starting to get a great reputation now in Australia and around the world. It's got people who have started to collect it and realise, fortunately, they just have to buy enough so that they can drink some now as well as cellaring it, because of course right. It'll live for a very long time. Yeah,
it's funny you say collecting, because I served it to a couple of guests at a restaurant, and they absolutely loved it, and they did mention that, you know, this is the sort of wine that they would keep in cellar for ages. And congratulations on the awards as well. Really high score points, and also Great Australian Red of the Year. Quite an achievement.
Yeah, it is. And look, it is that beautiful match of that lovely sort of combination of Coonawarra Cabernet, that beautiful Cabernet region in South Australia, so influenced by the Great Southern Ocean, that maritime.
Yeah.
You know, the limestone coast that used to be under the ocean and has now sort of come up to be beautiful grape growing country, and then some beautiful old vine Barossa Shiraz sort of layers on top of it.
Yes. And 2018's a great vintage, obviously, as a result. But as chief winemaker, was there any challenges that you sort of uncovered or faced upon when making this vintage?
Well, not really. But every vintage is different, and I think as winemakers, you know, the art, if you like, is predicting the vintage, is understanding the vintage, is going with the flow when Mother Nature, you know, is a bit warmer than you might like, or a bit cooler, and then, and I say listening, but what I really mean is sort of, you know, observing the grapes and tasting the grapes, because we know when the grapes are ready to pick, because they taste right and they look right, and that's when you can pick them and start to make the wine. And up until then, you've just really you're in Mother Nature's hands. So.
There's a bit of art of fortune telling and a bit of luck as well, isn't it?
And a fair bit of experience.
Yes. And you've been making wine since 1992 at Yalumba, is that right?
Yeah.
What's your most memorable moment, sorry?
Oh, look, there's so many of them, but I think, honestly, the release of the first Kaylee, which was the 2012 vintage, which we released in 2017, was an amazing time, because it's not often that we release something that's so brand new, but with so much sort of history and with so much confidence because of our history in that blend and those regions. So it was sort of one of those, it was a pretty amazing time.
Yeah. And the other wine that we have and is doing really well at Steer, because it's so rounded and balanced and it's really, really easy to drink, is the signature here, vintage 2019, which is another Cabernet Shiraz.
So the signature is a wine that we've made since 1962.
Wow.
And it's a Barossa Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz blend. Unlike the Kaylee, which is Coonawarra Cabernet, and the Kaylee's 80% Cabernet, the signature is closer to half and half. It's just Cabernet dominant. So it is this real blend of the two varieties. Because of our history and our understanding of the vineyards, you know, we've got a good pattern that we know which fruit goes well together. And then as we pick the grapes and we ferment them, we age the wine in barrels that we make in our own cooperage. And that's really special, because we have our own cooperage, and that helps us to give, you know, since we make barrels in the cooperage, we make barrels out of French oak and Hungarian oak, and we put the wine in those barrels that we literally craft for each vineyard and the blend. So it's a through the history of making this wine, we know exactly what we want to do each year.
Yeah.
And then we just respond, and 2019 was a great vintage. It was a low cropping year. We had frost and we had winds in spring, so the yields were down. That meant we had beautiful concentrated fruit, and it ripened early, which is always a dream for winemakers. And it just about made itself after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a team of winemakers, of course, and one of the things I should say is that of the 2019, one of the signatories on it, and the signature each year is dedicated to a person or people that have had a significant role to play in the business. And Kevin Glastonbury is one of the 2 signatories on the 2019. Now, Kevin Glastonbury is the red winemaker who actually makes the wine. Right. So there's a team of winemakers that have various responsibilities, but Kevin is the winemaker for this. And so yes, he and other winemakers, but particularly Kevin, will go out and taste the grapes. And the most important decision that he would make each year is when those grapes are ready to pick. Because you can't get them riper or less ripe after that. It's all about making that decision about when you want to pick the grapes. And then, of course, bit by bit, it's a daily fermentation. Just tweaking a few things around that. Which barrel it's going to go into, working with the cooper, making the barrels so that it's specific for the wines, and then the aging and the blending, and ultimately, after a couple of years, getting it in the bottle.
It's quite an art, isn't it? It's almost like an artist's painting, but you're making beautiful wines.
Yeah, and we get one shot a year, so.
There is a couple of questions that I'd like to have your thoughts on as a winemaker. So you have these 3 gorgeous wines here: the Kaylee, the Signature, and the FDR1A. So if you were to go to a barbecue party or a dinner, which one of these 3 would you take, and why?
I'd take them all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. That's actually a good point. Yeah.
And I think it's one of the great things when you have the opportunity to be able to look and to compare wines.
Yes.
And if you've got a winemaker in the room, everyone always wants to talk about wine.
Absolutely.
So if I took 3, then I'd have a captive audience to talk about.
Yes.
And talk about the difference, because, the Kaylee, which is, this sort of velvety, structure, this beautiful sort of piece of velvet, I always sort of think about it, and the Signature, which is, just complex and and beautiful, and then the FDR1A, which we take just from the Eden Valley part of the Barossa. So the Eden Valley is the high country of the Barossa. It's higher in altitude. The wines are more perfumed because at night time the vines really close down when it gets really cold. They maintain their beautiful aromas. So it's just from the Eden Valley. So we've got the Eden Valley, Barossa, which is a blend, and then the Kaylee, which is the blend of the 2 different regions.
That's brilliant. All 3 Cabernet Shiraz, but it's so individual and yet so different at the same time.
Yeah. And I think if we showed them to 3 people, we'd probably have 3 people that had their own favourite, and they'd be different because that's what wine's about, isn't it?
Yes.
It's such a personal thing. So
that's actually, take
all 3 to the barbecue, and then people can make their own mind up.
It's actually literally what happened when we did a tasting with the staff, and everyone had their own favourites. It's really quite interesting how the palates work, isn't it?
Well, and I think that's what wine is. We all have different palates. We all have different experiences. We all like different foods, and that's why we can talk about wine all day, can't we? But there are so many wines, and I'm glad you're not asking me what my favourite wine is, because you can't have that. But what I do say often is that you could literally have a different wine every day of the year, every day of your life probably, and never have to go back to the same wine again, because there's such a variety and such a beautiful tapestry of wines out there in the world to try.
Tapestry. I like that word. I'm gonna use that. There is actually, I just thought about a great question that I love asking guests and friends and whatnot. What's the first wine you've ever drunk or tasted?
Wow, that is a hard one. I'm not sure my memory goes back that far, and I'm not sure that I should actually say probably when I first started to drink wine. Look, I can remember, my parents drinking wine. Not a lot, but they used to have it with a meal, and I remember, it just being part of, our great sort of, memories as a family, that there was these beautiful wines on the table. But it might have actually been a Henschke wine. I think I can remember, because my parents always loved the Henschke wines, and they weren't quite as expensive perhaps as they are now. So a really special occasion, I think there might have been a Henschke Hill of Grace come out.
Yes. Oh, how lucky. My first wine at Hospo School was a boxed wine, so not quite as comparable.
Well, there's wine for every occasion.
There really is. Yes, I'll save that one for cooking. My final question is, if you were to have a wine with KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, what would it be?
Well, I'm assuming that we're not actually allowed to take wine into a KFC restaurant, are we? No. So assuming we're going to take it away somewhere, let's go and let's have it somewhere that's a beautiful setting with some great family, and in which case you can really match it with all sorts of things. I do think though, one of our great food loving wines at Yalumba is Viognier. Yes. And Viognier is beautiful with spices, and so how many spices have they got? 11 secret herbs and spices.
Something like that. Yeah.
Perfect, I'd
say. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for dropping by all the way from South Australia and joining us and providing your insights on these beautiful wines. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Melbourne.
My pleasure.
Thank you.